Hello, we are here, and I want to thank everyone for participating and watching the film. This is day one of our 4-day observance of the National Day of Racial Healing, and this particular film, Imagine Walls, was sponsored by the National Office of Coming to the Table. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom DeWolf, who is the leader of the National Office of Coming to the Tables.
Thanks so much, Kwami, and thanks everyone for being here. That's exciting that this is the 5th annual National Day of Racial Healing. And of course, our hope is that people are inspired to make 365 days a year the National Day of Racial Healing. And big thanks to you, Kwami, you and Clarice, and everyone at Arkansas Peace and Justice Memorial Movement for putting on a full week's worth of events around the National Day of Racial Healing. There's so much going on in the world today that is causing us a lot of anxiety and challenge and heated rhetoric, and so it's good to be reminded with a film like this, and so excited to see this when the first Coming to the Table local affiliate group started up in Oakland. When they first began meeting, they were meeting at the earlier office of the Attitudinal Healing Connection. And Oakland is the home also of Our Joy, Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, which now Coming to the Table is a program of. So my program director, Jody Geddes, lives in Oakland and also works for Our Joy. So lots of wonderful connections there. And just a big thanks to the 3 of our panelists today. Kwami, of course, with Arkansas Peace and Justice Memorial Movement, which is an affiliate of Coming to the Table, one of 45 currently in 18 different states. Phoebe Kilby is a longtime member of Coming to the Table and helps facilitate the Asheville, North Carolina local group. And Jill Heine is with the Lancaster, Lebanon, Pennsylvania local affiliate group. And where I'd like to begin is just to ask each of you to introduce yourself however you feel beyond what I've just given the little tidbit, just kind of where you're coming from, and then your first impressions of the film that we just saw. And Kwami, I'd like to begin with you as the person that we're grateful for organizing all of this. So if you wouldn't mind leading us off.
Well, yes, I'm Kwami Abdul-Bey, and the film, it really spoke to me because the experiences of the husband and wife team in the film, I'm actually living those experiences with me and my wife. I too had a period in my life where I joined the Nation of Islam, and in the process of me wanting to expand my horizons, ended up choosing the path that I'm on right now as far as coming to the table. And I've been doing it pretty much alone and with my wife, just trying to figure things out. But when Arkansas Peace and Justice Memorial Movement became an affiliate of the Equal Justice Initiative, the people at EJI told us about coming to the table. So that's when we reached out to you, Tom, and it's a marriage made in heaven for us because it's everything we want to do, everything we want to be a part of. And the results that we saw on the film are the results that we're striving for here in Arkansas.
Thank you. Thanks so much. That's so wonderful to hear. Jill, how about you in Pennsylvania?
Yes, hi from Pennsylvania. Recently joined Coming to the Table and have really appreciated the opportunity to meet with people online, of course now, who had the desire to talk about issues of race, around race, because that was something I hadn't had a platform or a circle or people in my life to do that with. So I was so grateful through a 21-day racial equity challenge that I had done back in March, become aware of Coming to the Table and joined. And so, yeah, just very much appreciate that space. And then specifically learned about circle process through a STAR class that I had taken that's connected with Coming to the Table, or Coming to the Table is loosely connected with STAR, Strategies for Trauma Awareness and Resilience, and learned about the circle process, which is highlighted so much in this film. So it just excites me that the circle process, something so simple, can be so powerful. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Jill. And Phoebe, you've been with Coming to the Table for a really long time, and you and I have known each other for more than a decade. What's up with you and your first impressions of the film?
Well, I think what really impressed me was how Aisha and Kokoman really created this incredibly enveloping space where people sort of automatically trusted them and trusted the process. And one thing that struck me that Aisha said at the very beginning was one of their principles of their attitudinal healing was the essence of being is love. And to me, they really exuded love for everybody in their circles. Aisha had this wonderful smile that just made you feel like she loved you. And Kokoman, I just enjoyed his sense of humor. You know, he was just joking with people, and that kind of disarms people as well. You know, you can laugh with him. So I thought they were particularly effective together as a couple in creating a safe space for all the people that joined their healing circles. And I was also really impressed with how long they've been doing this. I forget how many years they had. I mean, long before Coming to the Table was around. And that was, you know, I appreciated their longevity in this and their willingness to hand it over to young people. They said, you know, now it's time for the young people. And we saw young people really doing it. So thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. You know, the phrase that jumped out to me pretty early on in the film was when Aisha was talking about the power of choice. This, you know, that we can choose healing. Everything that we do is a choice. And it was really a strong moment for me. Is there's so much going on that causes people anxiety and stress these days, and so much division, and it's all a choice, and it's a really good reminder. You know, what the other thing that jumped out at me, I forget who said this in the film. One of the young women said that you can't expect others to listen to your story unless you're willing to listen to theirs.
Indeed.
And that's really what circle process is all about, is the building of relationships through the sharing of stories.
Yes.
And what a powerful thing. I'd like each of you to answer a question that was posed in the film. during their circle, and that was, what lessons from racial healing circles can we apply to other aspects of our lives? Which one
I think
would
the
you like to
main,
go first? Go ahead, Phoebe.
I think the main thing for me that, you know, there's a discipline to the healing circle to listen to the person who's holding the talking piece. And so often we do what I just did, which is talk over other people. But you know, we're so concerned about what we're going to say and whether we're saying it right and all that, that we don't listen to other people. And I think what I've learned from circle process, and something that I think is very important for me as somebody who identifies as European American or white, is the importance to listen to other people's story, so that I really learn from people rather than imposing my own stuff on everybody else. So the circle process is, for me, been the key to trying to be, at least, a better listener.
Thanks so much. Jill, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say something very similar. I liked it when they said at the beginning, it's less of a conversation, more of a chance to be heard. And I guess I feel like that has been also my experience within the circle process with coming to the table. And, you know, it's not a conversation, so it's not so much back and forth, but just the value of or the act of, through listening, validating someone, and how powerful that can be for when the circle breaks up and people leave and people truly feel heard. That then can just, for myself, it just gives you a lighter step. And all it was just providing a platform for people to be heard. Again, it's just incredible how powerful it can be, just that we listen. Because I think for myself, in most of life, there's a scrambling to want to be heard, or I don't even bother. So anyway, just to be heard is a very powerful thing, especially in today's world where there's so many voices out there.
You know, I come from Aboriginal background, so the talking sticks are something that I actually grew up with.
Wow.
And so it's something that's been ingrained inside of me. And like it's been said before, it's taught me the importance of listening. And I remember when my wife and I got married, she would talk and I would just sit and say nothing. And she'd go on and on and on. Then she'd finally say, what's going on? Why aren't you? I'm like, because I'm listening. And she wasn't used to someone listening to her thoroughly. So that's something that she found for me to be a keeper, because I listened to her.
I was just listening to NPR today, and I don't remember the names. All I know is they were talking about this particular topic, and this man said that his wife told him one of her issues with him is that he just wasn't a good listener. And he said, of course I am. I interview people for a living. I'm a reporter, and I listen really well all the time. And so she said, okay, listen to this recording of you talking with someone. And he was just horrified at how often he interrupted, how often he was preparing his comeback. And he said that was a real wake up to me. And I've been working real hard ever since to be a more compassionate and thoughtful and authentic listener. When we were making the film Traces of the Trade, gosh, almost 20 years ago now, and we were in Cuba our very first day, and we had a tour guide or a tour leader for us on a bus that would take us to the sites that we were going for the film. And the very first thing he said is, my encouragement to you is to listen more than you talk. Ask people questions and they will answer you. This is not what you've heard about in American media. And he says, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I just love that. So I don't know, I'm just so pleased with this. And another thing that Aisha said is that we're together in this in a long journey.
Yes.
And I know that as a European descended, white, male, able-bodied, heterosexual, raised Christian, all of the advantages that are baked into the system in the United States are here to benefit people who look like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it hasn't been my experience to learn to listen very well. I'm the one who's supposed to be listened to. Well, of course, that's where all the problems arise. And so just the gentleness of these 2 wonderful people at the heart of this film, the gentleness, but the firm reminder of the importance of this is so powerful.
I think the gentleness coupled with the intentionality creates that power that you're talking about.
Yes. What else jumps up for any of you? Or do you have questions for each other, or something that we haven't discussed yet that jumps out for any of you? Yeah, Jill.
Yeah, I would say something that struck me was Aisha several times said that the objective or the goal is to do the hard work on themselves, and that it was about us working on ourselves and not so much wanting to change others. Not so much what is going on the outside, but what is inside the person. So that really struck me, as a good reminder and stuck with me.
Thank you. Phoebe or Kwami?
Well, definitely. And the thing that I was just thinking about when you just said what you said, Jill, is what is it that you are dealing with on the inside, because you're new to coming to the table. So what struggle did you currently become conscious of inside that led you to this type of work?
Yeah. Well, more specifically right now, or like just how I came to coming to the table with.
You can answer it however you want.
Yeah, I'll say that I did have a crisis moment back in 2016 where I was, for the first time that I can remember, in a minority walking around Philly, and just had a moment of recognition. And then the next day heard someone speak at church on a book that he had just recently written about his personal experience. And then his name was Dr. Hart. Drew Hart has written 2 books now. And so very powerful, and realized, you know what, never at any time in my life had it been communicated in any way that living in primarily, if not all white spaces, I was missing out. And so it just hit me like a brick wall. And I just tried to be very intentional since then. I will say right now, I feel just, trying to, even when it can feel like I've been very intentional and doing a lot of work now with the, finding spaces. So it's very, especially during a pandemic of time of social justice, or excuse me, time of social distancing, trying to build spaces into my life to have conversations, and also slowly over the last year and a half, working with friends and family, those closest to me, having those difficult conversations. So that's in addition to working with in my own heart and just basically telling my own story as a way to start the conversation.
You know, Jody Geddes, who is the other manager at Coming to the Table, one of the things she talks about a lot is the importance of getting proximate with each other. Is, you know, how do we fall in love with each other? We hear each other's stories. How do we get furious with each other? It's through hearing each other's stories. And so if we're going to build the authentic and accountable, genuine relationships, working towards racial healing, it requires that. It requires this, the ability of people to come together and talk. And, you know, I hear a lot of folks over the years who've said, coming to the table, you know, it's too much talk and not enough action. And my constant reminder to myself and others is, until we change enough hearts and minds of individuals, we can change the laws all we want to. We changed civil rights and voting rights laws in the early 1960s, and look where we are today. So that the work, the active work of transformation, liberation within each of us individually, it is my responsibility for myself, and it's others' responsibility to remind me when I'm not living up to my own ideals in this work. So that's where the relationships come in, is those kinds of reminders.
And it's that relational storytelling that is so appealing to me, as far as this work with the circles and everything. Even in the chat, Linda just put a comment in there. It says, to be heard, and in many cases finally vocalize long held hurts and stories. That's so much healing, to be able to tell those stories. And I love NPR when they have several different programs where people tell stories. And I just love listening to those stories. And I love the opportunity to tell my own story, because even in the work that we're doing right now, Tom, and I just want to let you know just how influential the work of Coming to the Tables has been on me. Is I've I think I've dealt with so much historical trauma, not just in my own life, but from an ancestral standpoint, that I've forgotten large parts of my life. And now that I'm telling these stories, I'm actually starting to remember things that I hadn't remembered in decades.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and
You know, I have people
the work that
who
I'm
will say
working
to
of myself.
Yeah, yeah. I have people, you know, I do a fair amount of public speaking, and invariably somebody will ask, or somebody will say, I'm glad I'm not you, you know, because I've just explained that I'm descended from the largest slave trading dynasty in US history, and white people want nothing to do with that kind of heaviness. And, you know, I'll just ask them, do you suppose your ancestors wore cotton clothing or smoked tobacco, you know, put sugar in their tea, ate rice? And, you know, I'm not interested in putting a guilt trip on people, or shaming people, but just a recognition that we together have an obligation to heal those wounds from the past. And the circle process is such a key tool. What a wonderful resource. There's another topic or another comment that came up from Rebecca in the chat, that it doesn't have to be an either or proposition, talk and action. We need both and more. Absolutely. I look at relationship building as a form of action, just like marching in protests, signing petitions, lobbying your legislators. It's also important to recognize the active part of communicating and building relationships and being authentic in that work. Yeah, good comment.
And I would say here in Asheville, our group, when we first started out, I was the only one that had very much experience with coming to the table. And a number of people said, I don't want any of this. We don't want to do all this talk stuff. We got to make a difference here. And there was a lot of focus on action. But over time, the group has evolved into a place where whenever we have our meetings, we've developed a level of trust that we really can talk to each other and tell our personal stories, and then support each other as we go out and do activist work. And we've decided to approach that activist work by being collaborating with other groups, because our group is kind of small and we feel like we can be more effective if we collaborate. So there's a local racial justice coalition that involves, maybe 20 different groups working for racial justice. And because it was a bigger group, we got a grant. And now and that group has a staff. Well, our local group doesn't have to have a staff and bank accounts and things. We collaborate with that group. And that's how we've sort of been able to be more effective at action while allowing our own meetings to be places, sort of a safe haven to talk about what's happening to us as we do get involved in these various projects. So that's how we've sort of ended up doing both the talk and the action.
And what I found interesting is various affiliate groups have come to the table, approach this in ways that are unique to that community, and not just that community, but the people who are participating. I mean, we've got local groups that are essentially a book reading group, and they're focused on books about racial justice and racial healing. Or we've got groups that do a lot with film and discussion around film. It's what works with that particular community of people, as long as the work is being done. The thing that is most useful is when people are focused on the transformation, focused on understanding what's at stake here.
Well, I have a question for you, Tom.
Yeah.
One thing that was really stood out for me in the film was the goal to really bring young people into becoming circle keepers. And I remember when Clarice and I first joined Coming to the Table, and we participated in that first national call. One of the discussion topics was the need to get more young people involved. What challenges has Coming to the Table had in doing that? Because I think that these young people are going to really help that transformation that you're talking about.
Some of the challenge is that Coming to the Table got started mostly by people who lived through the civil rights movement. Okay. And people that are my kids' age and younger, that's history. Mm-hmm. It's not lived experience. And so it's a different form of woundedness that people experience who didn't live it. And so consequently, initially, for sure, the average age was way up there with Coming to the Table. And we have had some success getting more younger people involved. And now that we're connected with restorative justice for Oakland youth out in Oakland, you know, here I am 66 years old, Jody is in her 20s, and we are co-managing this program. So her strong focus is getting more young people involved, and reestablishing the work of younger people within this community, because you're right, it's been a real challenge, and I really, it's become pretty clear that that's kind of the line of demarcation, is there's a lot that these two generations may not understand about each other, because such radically different lived experience. When you lived during Jim Crow, or you just read about Jim Crow, it's a real different. When you were alive when Malcolm X and Dr. King were assassinated, and JFK and Bobby Kennedy, I mean, all those, it's real different for people my kids' age and my grandkids' age. So that's where, coming right back full circle to the circle process, is inviting people in and hearing each other's stories. It has dramatically changed the lives of people who are my age and people who are my grandkids' age and everything in between. So really an important aspect of this, and definitely a work in progress with coming to the table. Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Kwami. We've only got a few minutes left, so yeah, Jill, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can think of something to add to that. You know, our group are fairly young. We have been meeting about a year, and we're still in the midst of sharing our histories, researching and sharing our histories. But one thing, with one person in particular who recently shared, you know, she did it virtually, but, you know, sort of in a family reunion time, which would cover all ages. And so it, you know, who knows, but it would seem like, as you know, again, we're very young and we're still in the sharing our histories, but as we would share our histories that we prepare for coming to the table, and then we share it with our families, which have people of all ages, you know, I could see young people possibly being intrigued and being interested, especially with what's happening in real life, in real world scenarios. So who knows, it just made me think of that, because our group is still so young and sharing our histories.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is offer each of you the opportunity to share some closing thoughts. We're getting to near the end of our time together. So Phoebe, would you like to share? I know.
Put me on the spot. Well, can something else go? I gotta think about it.
Yep. Kwami, how about you?
Yeah, well, what I want to say is that for me, for my wife, for the Pulaski County Community Remembrance Project, of which several members are watched the movie and they're in the chat right now. I see Sky is there right now, but this is a long-term goal for us, and we know that especially the pandemic really stunted our growth, because we really had hit the ground running about a year ago, and then everything kind of came to a halt. So we've been trying to figure out how to do this virtually, but we're all in this for the long haul. And our goal is to get it where the state of Arkansas actually recognizes the National Day of Racial Healing in the same breath that it recognizes the Martin Luther King Day of Service. So we've worked in the 2 years that we've been in existence. Today, we're happy to say that we have 88 mayors and county judges that have all issued proclamations for the National Day of Racial Healing. And the governor of Arkansas this year is the second year that he's issued a proclamation. Last year, he was the first governor to ever issue a proclamation. We have several school superintendents that have issued proclamations as well. So our goal is to make sure that every third Tuesday, which is the day after Martin Luther King Day, that's the day of the National Day of Racial Healing, Rebecca. We want to make it a statewide thing. So we're introducing legislation in the Arkansas General Assembly within the next week or so to get the National Day of Racial Healing as a state official observance.
That is so exciting. I mean, the thing that you reminded me of that I hope I know that we're all cognizant of, but really focusing on just the deep challenges we face as a nation with everything that's been highlighted with, the murders of unarmed Black men in particular, the Black Lives Matter protests, then coupled with a pandemic, and then a presidential administration that is fomenting white supremacy in their words and their actions is just, oh my goodness. And then, the environmental destruction that we're facing, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I hope that people take from the film and from our discussion is that what we're doing is not, it's not the idea of touchy-feely and make us feel good. It really is about transformation. It's about truth-telling. It's about liberating ourselves from the wounds and the chains that have binded us, and they bind us in different ways depending upon our particular history. But we've all been traumatized by this, and that recognition, I think, is key to utilizing in a racial healing circle process. Jill or Phoebe?
I would just to add a little bit, I think it was Aisha said that this is a long-term process, and yeah. Tom and I have been doing this, or been involved in coming to the table since 2006, and I'm still learning things every day about myself, about my family history. It becomes that much more interesting every day, and I learn so much about myself and my foibles and sometimes I do things right, what's very, mostly I mess up, but I'm always learning, and that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, thank you, Phoebe. And Jill, and I want to say that given the demographics of coming to the table, you are one of our youngest members.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Kwami, for, and the Arkansas Peace and Justice for providing this film, opportunity to watch this film together in a virtual space. And I feel like, it helps us be encouraged that we're not alone in this work, even our individual coming to the table groups, even when we know it's part of a national, just again, doing it together and then having this discussion. I know my group will be having their planning session next Wednesday for our February meeting, and I'll take some of this back to our group. So just the opportunity to be together, it's a shot in the arm as we're all anticipating being vaccinated to us in this work. So I just very much appreciate the space, and it's encouraging to know we're not alone.
Yes, indeed. And stick with us, because every night this week, we will be having a film and a panel discussion. So actually tomorrow night, we will be having a film entitled Vilified, Guilty of Being Black in America. And it's a film about the 1927 double lynching that happened here in Little Rock, of which one of the victims was my grand uncle. So we'll have the film, and then we'll have a panel discussion with descendants from both sides of the lynching and law enforcement.
Wow, powerful. So everybody be sure to tune in for that tomorrow. And just a big thanks to everybody who joined us watching the film. You can learn more about Arkansas Peace and Justice Memorial Movement at their website. It's apjmm.org. Yep. And then comingtothetable.org. And we hope to see you at the table and enjoy the rest of your evening. And boy, we'll make it through this. We'll make it through this. Thanks, everyone.